Next, I'm going to start with the project Servlet code. I'm going to start with the HTTP request data. The HTTP request data class is a Java bean that stores information about a HTTP request, like the remote computer name, request URL, HTTP method, and other key request attributes, making it easy to access and display on the JSP page. Here are the key variables for this class. The class holds fields for various HTTP request details. Each one has its own getter and setter methods. Each field has getter and setter methods following Java Bean conventions, allowing easy access in JSPs with the express language. The HTTP request data Java Bean organizes request data in a single reusable object, simplifying code and making data transfer between Servlet and JSP more efficient. Okay, next I'm gonna go to the HTTP request survey class. The purpose of the HTTP request survey class handles HTTP requests, gathering details from the request and storing them in a Java bean. It then forwards this data to a JSP page for structured display. The servlet annotation, the web servlet annotation maps their servlet to the URL pattern request servlet. So any requests to this URL are handled by the HTTP request servlet. Handling GET requests, the doGET method manages GET requests using the HTTP servlet request and the HTTP servlet response to retrieve request data and manage the output. Creating and populating the Java bean within doGET, the servlet creates an HTTP request data Java bean to hold request details like remote host, HTTP method, and user agent. Each piece of request data is stored in the Java bean with methods like HTTP request data dot set remote computer request get remote host, HTTP request data set HTTP method request get method, and HTTP request data set user agent request get header user agent are just some examples of the ones we've used. Adding the bean to the request scope, the servlet adds the HTTP request data bean to the request scope with the request set attribute, request data, and HTTP request data. This makes the data accessible in the JSP page with expression language. Forwarding to the JSP, the servlet then forwards the request to the HTTP request data.jsp. The request dispatcher equals request.get request dispatcher, HTTP request data.jsp, dispatcher forward request response. This process separates the data collection and display, improving organization and maintainability. And lastly, we have the property servlet. The purpose of the property servlet. The property servlet class loads project properties from a configuration file and displays them on the JSP page. It organizes these details in a table format, making it easy for users to view project information. Servlet installation and properties loading. When the servlet is first loaded, when the server is first loaded, the init method calls load properties, which loads the properties file from a specified file path, project3.properties. If the file isn't found, an exception is logged. The doGet method responds to the HTTP GET request by setting the loaded properties as a request attribute. It then forwards the request to the project 3 properties.jsp page for display. This servlet simplifies the process of loading configuration data and presenting it on a JSP page by centralizing properties in one place. It keeps the code organized and enhances maintainability. And that's it for the servlet code.